Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode in Daily Life with Paul. I'm your host, Paul. Today is a very special episode. Something that I've been working on for a while now is that these are all of my past memories. Obviously, this video is called The Origin of Paul Undocumented. That means that I have been journaling for years now, and that's documented. So these are all the memories that I still have inside of my brain that is unjournaled. Now, the reason why I have been working so hard on this this project that I've been needing to get out is simply because I feel like in a lot of places I'm still stuck in my past. Because I don't realize this because people don't tell me, but from birth up until the Logan Paul incident, to going to jail twice, to having all these things, I am now starting to realize that I hate to sound like a victim, but I have been through like a lot of trauma, like serious trauma. Like, I mean, it's like when you take a man and you basically work him down till he's on his knees and outside by himself at the age of like in his 20s, talking about me, in his 20s when he's like starting to develop as a man, and he's on the street dealing with mental issues, being on all this medication from a car accident. It's like that's like the worst possible time that you could like scramble somebody up. So the reason for the origin of Paul Undocumented is going back and seeing what led up to this. Why do I have these ambitions of being wildly famous? Why did I choose Los Angeles to come out here and become something? Why did I go to Logan Paul's house and spray paint my vehicle in front of his house, screaming, "Oh, I need brand deals, I need brand deals"? So this has been really painfully like needing, like I needed to just get it in a film format. So obviously this isn't going to be like the normal vlogs that I typically make. This video and for the next upcoming videos, all this videos is going to be the undocumented, and then after that I'm literally going to take which is very personal. I want to say that I haven't seen anybody do this before, but there are clearly autobiographies of people. But I'm literally just going to read word for word out of my personal journals or diaries up until current day, so that I can stop worrying about the past. It's just like this thing that's just like on my shoulder all the time. That it's just like I focus on the past so much that now that I'm just going to read it out loud. So I was born in Pennsylvania. I was a massive child. I was 10 pounds 5 ounces. I think typically babies are like 6 pounds or something. And clearly I and my other 2 brothers were taken out by C-section. I have a total of 3 brothers, and the oldest one is adopted, and then it's the older one, me, and then the youngest one. So, and keep in mind, this is like in real life. This is like shit that really happened. I couldn't leave the hospital for weeks due to complications. And then once I left the hospital, the machines came with me. So I was this baby who was hooked up to all these machines. One night, and I've said this before on camera, but my heart stopped. This would normally occur where my heart would stop, but my mom would push some buttons and it would restart my heart. This time my heart wasn't starting again. So she had to take me out of the incubator, and my aunt drove to the hospital. I remember specifically she started cursing at my aunt because she stopped at a red light and she started screaming, "What the fuck are you doing? Go through the light." And obviously they brought me back. So even like that, like that's not like a normal, that's not supposed to happen. I was always overweight, and the crazy part is, this is something that I haven't said, is that I was white. I remember, I wish I had it, but I don't have a relationship with my family anymore. But like when my mom showed me a picture of me as like an infant, like a baby, I don't even think I could crawl at that point, I would assume. I was like white. Not like a pale, sickly white, but I was white. Like my father, because my father's white, biological father, and my mom is black. That's why you get this caramel character. And then obviously a few years passed by and I began preschool in Pennsylvania. The very first day, I went up to, like I just got up and I went over and I got some water. And as I'm reaching for it, I remember this. I actually remember this in my brain. Like I was reaching up and the teacher just started screaming at me. Like, what the hell am I doing, basically? She started screaming at me. Obviously, all the parents are gone. And it's just the kids. And obviously, the kids, like, looked at me. And I literally just stood out of line. Like, it was a little group, and I stood out of line, and I needed some water. I was thirsty. She screamed at me, and she sent me way to the back of the room. And I remember, like, I was, like, sitting on this big orange thing that like rocks back and forth, and like I just remember like sitting in the corner questioning, like I was like, what did I do? And just I remember, I can still, like, if I really close my eyes, I can remember the classroom and looking at the kids all the way over there with the teacher, and I was just like in the back by the door that was open. My mom had diabetes. Yeah, so my mom has diabetes, and Pennsylvania, it snows out there, so it was too cold for her, and she was like ill. She was like sick a lot of the time, so we had to move to California. I think it was like at the age of 3, and I can also remember in my brain walking into the house in California for the first time, and yeah, and of course, you know, I started elementary school. And elementary school is like, it was like the same story. Not the teacher yelling at me, but I was just alone. I was just a very quiet kid who was just taller and fatter than all the other kids. And I remember that's when I really experienced like almost like a nurturing from an adult who wasn't my family, and that was Mr. Barnett. Mr. Barnett, he had a 6 foot long iguana in a cage inside the classroom, and I know that nowadays there's no way that you can get the regulations and the paperwork to do this, but he had an iguana in there, and he would open the cage and it would come out and it would walk around the classroom. And I really wish I had the tapes for this, but I clearly don't. But I remember there was a VHS tape that that we had, and I remember I dressed up in like so cringy. Dressed up in like women's clothing. I had a hat on, I had like a scarf, and I was like walking down. Oh God! And I was like walking like almost like a catwalk, and like you just see this big fat kid, fucking. And in that classroom, I didn't feel any sort of resentment. It was like a free space. Everywhere outside that classroom, it was still bullying. I remember one day I wore a purple shirt and I walked into the gate, and this motherfucker literally screamed out, "Hey, look everyone, Paul's wearing a purple shirt." And like, it was like literally, like, I know it's not that serious, like to say right now, but it was like literally, it was almost like if you took like a bucket of ice water and threw it on me. Like, it was like, and you know, I just went to my normal space where I would go all the way back to the soccer field where there was no one out there at all, and I would just wait for school to start, and I just went back there. I didn't run or anything, I just walked over there. And then after being bullied for a little bit too much, I went home and I did homeschool. So after all that, I was homeschooled, and this lovely woman, I remember her name was Letty. My mom was still sick at the time, and she would literally come upstairs and, like, you know, you got to do the paperwork for the homeschool to see if they're getting the right grades and all this and all that. And I remember we would get like the government help or whatever, and we got the best of the best. Like, we had like science projects and like minerals, and we had this huge table that was like Thomas the Tank Engine, like town or whatever, which is super expensive, but you know, I mean, we had that. I remember we used to go to the store called A Plus, and like I remember that was like, there was like craft supplies there with like Play-Doh and shit like that, and fuck, I love that. During that time, this is a thing that kind of stood out. I dug a hole in our backyard, which was super cool. Parents didn't care. I dug a hole that was like maybe like 4 feet deep and like 5 feet around, and I filled it with mud and water, and like I would just sit in there like a mud bath. So that was super weird. After homeschool, I began middle school, and that was like, bullying got way worse. Bullying got like way worse. It was so awful because like I was still the same quiet kid who would say to myself, and I remember this girl came up to me and she kind of like tried to talk to me or something, and then she literally said this. She said, "Oh, I thought you were like, I thought you were retarded." I was like, "No," and then obviously she left. That's when I started my entrepreneurial stage in life. I started my landscaping service, and that's where I was like a little, like a savant or something. I was running my neighborhood like by myself. There was no one to help me whatsoever. And I did that, and I got my money. I got my money right, and then I used that money to build like a shack in the backyard, and I literally built like a house. My dad built a house for me because I funded it. So I had my little house back there, and I remember one rainy day, I had a TV in there, and I had like a little DVD thing in there, and I got these porn tapes, right? So I'm like sitting there like fucking, and then my fucking mom walked in, and I was like, fuck, and she slammed the door, and like I was like, I don't know why the hell she never went in there, ever. Like, I don't know why she decided out of the blue what she needed to tell me. She could have literally just said, Paul, and I would have heard her and stopped jerking off and opened the door. But no, she literally just walked in, came into the backyard, walked across while it was raining, and opened the fucking door. I was like, ah! I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it was so awkward, like, after, so I did that shit, and then I began high school. High school, I'm not gonna lie, like, I was an awkward kid, but I think I had a few friends. Definitely not someone who would like come over and like hang out with me. But I would kind of like, if there was like a group of people, I would kind of like mesh in there. And actually there were some times where I was like actually funny, you know, like, so I just kind of meandered around. And then I got hit by a car. I got hit by a car on my bike when I was going home to school. Going home. And I remember because I was like, right, and this is what got him, because we got a lawyer. I think it was Larry H. Parker. I think it was the guy. He looked good. Like, he looked like put together. Like, this was a serious lawyer. And it was me and my mom, and we went to a Denny's or something, and he bought us like breakfast and shit. And he was like I told him this. I said, I was riding my bike, and then I looked up and I looked both ways, and I saw the car was just parked there, and it was just stopped. And I wasn't lying. This actually happened. And he was stopped, so I looked back down, and then as soon as I entered the street, he just gunned it and he hit me. And I remember like I flew over my handlebars, and like I hit my head on the ground. Wait, what was it? Because I had to have a cast on this arm. So like the point is, like, I dove over and I hit the ground, and then I remember I think I knocked out. The point is, like, the ambulance showed up. They started asking, "Oh, where are you?" This and that. And then they're like, don't move. And I'm like, God damn, bro, the fucking asphalt is hot, man. And then they get me up on the stretcher, and I had like a neck brace. And I remember my mom showed up, and she was like wearing all white. It's so crazy. She had her makeup done. She had like her hair done, like, and she was like in all white. And as soon as I heard her, I was like, Mom? And I think she said something like, don't worry, Paul, it's gonna be okay. And then like the doors closed, and I went to the hospital. Keep in mind, I had to be like maybe 15 at the time or something like that. And then that's when, after the bike, I had a gas-powered motor scooter, which was fucking dope. Like, it was so cool. Because my mom's sister, she would live with us, but we didn't have money, so she had to go live with this Catholic church people house. So she was living over there, and they were balling out of control. They had money. They had so much money that they literally gave me and my younger brother gas-powered motor scooters. These things had to be like brand new, maybe like $1,200 a piece. So, like, I'm literally like, all I would do when I would get off of school and like finish my landscaping and all that shit was just, and I remember I crashed on that hard one time because I was coming around a corner and like I hit a puddle and like a boom, like I smacked the ground. And this lady saw me. It was just me. It was just her. No one else was around. So she saw me. She saw me fucking flatline, and she just kept walking, like right by me. I was like, you fucking cunt. Like, you bitch. Like, seriously? Whatever. And then I started driving it to school. I forgot to mention, when I got hit by the car, the principal of the school came down to check on me, which was really nice of her to do. And then I started riding my motor scooter, and then I went to the superintendent. I was just like, because it started becoming a thing, and I was like, can I ride my gas-powered motor scooter to school? And I think because I got hit by the car, that's the only reason why they knew me. They're like, fine. So I was like, it's amazing that I'm literally driving a gas-powered scooter to school, and still I'm like a loser, like an unpopular person with no friends. And I'm like, I gotta fucking, whatever. So yeah, no football, no sports. I didn't even get to graduate in Marietta Mesa High School, which really, really sucks. And around that time, that's when I started smoking and drinking. Was 15. I'm not gonna say his name. This man is, yeah. This man is like my best friend, I want to say, because he was like right down the street from me, and he was old. I think he was like 19 at the time. Skinny guy, and he fully embraced what I was. Like, I would literally come over sometime and I would just sit there like, and like, oh, this is gonna really hurt to tell this story, but thankfully he started me, drinking and smoking in like a safe environment and everything like that. And he would bring girls over and everything like that. It was so fucking dope. I remember one time, I think I spent like fucking 2 whole ass weeks over there with not even telling my mom. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. And the reason why I'm having a problem with this is because I'm fast forwarding a little bit. But during this time, like, I was on medication and everything like that, I had to break off our relationship because he moved forward and he has like a girlfriend and a kid now. And whatever it was, I just had to stop talking to him, which is really fucked up of me. But point blank period, if I had a best friend, it was him. Got jerking it, got jerking it, landscaping, go to shack. yeah, forgot to say that, but when I was younger, I had a little ATV that I got for Christmas, a little electrical one, and I got a tent from a yard sale, and I took my guinea pig and I ran away. I was so mad that I literally ran away to the corner, and my plan is I was gonna take my little ATV, I was gonna set up my tent on the corner as like, I think I was like 10 or something, 10 years old. And I was gonna live inside the tent on the corner, and then at nighttime I was gonna break into the house and then get more food. That was the plan. But as soon as I got to the corner, my mom came in her truck. She was like, "Get your ass back home," which my mom rarely yells at all, but yeah. So that happened. Ooh, man. So around that time, I'm maybe 16 years old, and then my oldest brother, he had a friend, which my mom and my brothers, I don't know about my dad, but we didn't like them because he would call the lady of the house mom, which is like you're adopted, and it's not cool, bro. But he would call her mom, and this is really interesting. Then him and his friend, my oldest brother and his friend, and then this other friend, the friend of the friend came over. He was like this tall black guy with an afro. Yeesh. And like I saw him in person, I think I fist bumped him or something, but it was at nighttime. And then they left. I didn't think anything of it. And within that week, the friend of the friend, can I say this? I'm gonna say it. He murdered the girl that was like in the house, because like it was my oldest brother and then the friend where my oldest brother was living at, and then that friend had like two sisters, and the tall skinny black guy with the afro literally like stabbed her to death. And then he also stabbed the man of the house a few times. His name was Paul. And he was like an older gentleman, skinny. And then he ran off into the bushes, and clearly they found him. And I remember sitting at home, looking at the news, looking at his face, like, oh my God. Like he was at our house. And apparently the mom had to clean up the blood. Around that time, I started buying like BB guns from the ice cream man. I remember once he bought me like this full size like AK-47, and he was giving it to me for like a good price, like $40 I think it was. And it was like da 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 da, and it was powerful too. And he would sell it to kids. I was like, "You're alright, man. You're cool." And then I shouldn't say this either. I'm gonna leave him out of it, but I robbed a house. So this family that we kind of knew, he was just kind of like there. They were moving, and in my innocence, I went down there on my bike, and the front door was open, and like the house was like empty, but I remember I took like a laptop, like 2 cameras, like $50 of like a wallet, and it was me and like, I think it was only one other person, but I'm not gonna mention him. And I robbed a house, And then like I'm I'm inside my room, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like this is so cool. We got all the shit, and then I go downstairs to the garage, and I see their black SUV pulling up to the house. And the father comes to me and he's like, listen, just give back all the stuff, and we're not gonna call the cops, we're not gonna cause any problems. And I'm like, yes sir. And like I run upstairs, and as soon as I'm running upstairs to the garage door, my dad walks outside and he says, what's going on? And I was like, oh no. And I run upstairs, and he yelled my name like so loud that like I started crying, and like I grabbed everything and I gave him back the stuff. My dad was like, is this all the stuff? And the kid of the $50 who I had, he said no, it was $70, which it wasn't. So I had to give him some of my money, which was like whatever, I deserved it. So that was super scary. Out of nowhere, like we have like this big balcony in the background, in the backyard, and like it was like starting to fall apart. And like I remember like the landlord got it rebuilt. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And now looking back at it with an adult mind, I was like, oh, that's a big red flag, because she ended up selling the house and we had to move, which was really fucked up, because it was really exciting for me because I was young. I remember being so excited of like, oh my God, like we never moved. Like in my mind, I've never moved before. This is so exciting. But it's like in the eyes of like my father, it's like I can't imagine of how scary that must have been. And then also on top of that, I don't understand, like we lived in that house for like, I think like 13, 14 years, paying rent $1,600 a month. And I remember at the time the house was worth like $250,000. And I'm thinking, like I'm not doing the math right, but I'm like, damn, we could have paid it off. Like we could have owned the house, which really sucked. But we had no other choice but to move out to Barstow, California. Now, Barstow, California is literally, if you've ever seen Cars, the movie, Lightning McQueen, Mater, what's his catchphrase? Dadgum or some shit. The Cars is like, I still watch that shit. I think it's fire. But Route 66 is not a joke. That movie is Barstow. It's fucking Barstow. And they depict it perfectly because the people are so fucking backwards. And I'm not lying, because go watch Cars the movie. That old lady, she slaps a sticker on them and it says Barstow. So I know that it's Radiator Springs, but it's Barstow. So me and my family had to move out to there. We had a huge house with a basement. I think it was 6 bedrooms, incredibly cheap rent. I think it was like $800 a month. Unfortunately, the landlord, she looked, I don't want to judge, but I think that she was retarded. I think that she was special needs. But we had a nice, like, I think it was like 1.3 acres on it. And I remember I used to take this railroad tie, which is a huge log, and I used to take a chain and then chain it around my waist, and I would drag it all the way down to the wash and then all the way back. During that time, yeah, moving to the Highway 58 house, and the very first day, we called the police on JP and his girlfriend. He was literally just beating on her. So we called the police. Found out later on that was completely normal for them. So it wasn't that big of a deal. And then right across the street, it was like this old lady who her husband died, and her name was Miss Hollingsworth, and we called her Mrs. H, and then later on we started calling her, I think we called her Grandma. Something like that. It was weird. Then she had her grandson come down. I'm not going to say his name. Let's call him Joe. So it was Miss H, JP, and Joe. And JP became my weed dealer. Miss H paid me as like a 17-year-old kid to demolish this house that was on her property. I was supposed to demolish all three, and I did, but I accidentally set it on fire because I was cutting this rebar and there was a whole bunch of sparks, and the insulation inside the house was like hay. It was like dry hay, and like the fire got out of control, and it literally burned to the ground. It burned all the way to the ground until it was just ash, which is super cool. Setting the house on fire, and then while Preston was, I mean, he would let me either way, even if he wasn't super high, but he was super high, and I was just like, hey, can I drive your car? Because Miss H gave him a car. It was like super old car, and I drove it all the way down to the wash, straight into the soft sand, and clearly this car just got stuck. So I remember at that moment, I called upon God. I was like, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. So I literally sat there and I was just like, if there's a God, please, please help me. Like, please, like I need help. And needless to say, nothing happened. And I was wearing flip-flops at the time, and I had to walk all the way back home, and my flip-flops was like falling apart, and like it was so hot that day, and I had to go. I told my dad first, I think. I was like, Dad, I fucked up. I got a car stuck in there, and it took us like 4 hours to get it out, but eventually we pulled it out with his truck. Fuck, man. And then I remember seeing JP smoke meth for the very first time. You know, where I grew up, it was just like a white people neighborhood. Like in the suburbs. Like we grew up in a very nice neighborhood. And I remember the very first night just like seeing him pull out like the glass pipe that didn't look like a smoking pipe for weed, and like seeing him smoke meth for the very first time. During that time, I started at Barstow High School, and like taking the bus, I remember that was cool because like I don't even think I've seen a bus before at that time. But like taking the bus, and then I met, what should we call him? Sam? I met Sam, who I called in the past my best friend. He wasn't my best friend. But I met Sam, and he would drive his car to school, which was awesome. And he would hang out with like all the uncool kids. And then like he kind of looked like me. So like I guess we got to the talking, but at the same time, we wouldn't like hang out every single day. Up until like maybe, I don't know, it took us a long time to start hanging out. But he would drive his Trans Am to school. Trans Am, yeah, it was like a car. And then that car broke, so he started driving his cop car. His grandfather gave him the cop car, which was a legitimate cop car in the past. It was a Crown Victorian. And I remember, like, we would smoke mad weed in that car. We would like go after school and like just fucking smoke and get blasted, dude. But I remember the first time going over to his house, and the level of hoarder that his grandfather was insane. It's like, and the smell, and then they scream at each other, they yell, they're like Indian, and like they like what the fuck, like yelling, and like I'm like, this is so different. Yeah, so Barstow High School, my grades were like failing, so I had to go down to Central High School. And when I went to Central High School, it was just me, and it was all online classes, so I blasted through so many classes that like, and then I got to go back to Barstow High School, and then I didn't have to take any of those classes, which there's no way. I never took trigonometry. I don't even think I took like algebra 1, algebra 2. I didn't take any of that shit. And there's no way that I could have passed without like going to Central High School. So shout out to Central High School. So yeah, 11th grade I returned, and at 17 3/4, I got my driving permit. Like as soon as it was legal, I got that shit. And was not. Oh yeah, and I crashed my mom's truck because I had like braces at the time, and I thought I needed to go. I thought the schedule. I swear they scheduled it. Like I have a little piece of paper with the date on it. So my mom was asleep, and I really wasn't supposed to, but I just took the truck and I just left, and then they were closed. It must have been a holiday or something. And then on the way back, like, it was like 2 stop signs and then just one where you run right through. There's no stop signs for this way, but there's 2 stop signs. And this lady just ran the stop sign, and needless to say, I smashed that vehicle. Like it literally bent her car. And the crazy part was, this is no cap, this is not bullshit. Maybe a few seconds before I took the seatbelt, because every time you put the seatbelt in, it came back out, and it came back out. It wouldn't stay in. So like I took it, and I put it in there, and like I tightened it, and then boom, I had that car accident. They took the lady away. They didn't even ask me if I'm okay. And then like I got back in the truck and I drove home, and then going up this hill, it just cut off, and like I started rolling back. It was only a 2-way, and I had to open up the hood, and it was the battery. So like I had to take the battery and push it back on, and I drove the way home. And I don't like, my parents were super easy on me, and I know why now, because they got the insurance money for it. And then I remember later on, my dad put like a new bumper on it. No, they pocketed that money. They pocketed that money. Prior to that, when I was, when we were still in Marietta, a car rear-ended. It was my dad, me, and my older brother. We were in the truck and someone rear-ended us. I remember that was pretty jarring. And then he replaced the bumper. That's what that one was for. 11th grade, 17, driving permit, was not supposed to go to the dentist, accident, seatbelts. 12th grade, I graduated, and I got $3,000 from getting hit by a car. So like when that guy hit me on the bike, when I was like going home from high school, I got $3,000. And at that same time, for, I would assume, is a graduation gift, Sam's grandfather bought Sam a 2015 Chevy Silverado, a brand new truck at the time. And then I bought the cop car for $600 from the grandfather. Let me make sure that my camera's still recording, that it didn't die, because it was okay. Yeah. So and then we moved again, and then after that we moved again. It's still in Barstow, and with my cop car, the paint was fading, obviously, because it's an old car. And I turned the garage into a painting booth. I put up these walls of plastic, and I professionally, like, I actually got, like, it was like a huge air tank that was my dad's, and then, like, I bought the air gun with the professional paint on it. I sanded it down and I painted it same color as black and white, so it looked like a cop car, because that's how it was, and that's how I liked it, and that's how I kept it. And then after that, I got my friend, it was my little brother's friend, who was like really good with like cars and everything like that. He installed like these huge loud speakers, which was awesome. And I remember one night I was hanging out with the girls because it was Sam's girlfriend. I don't think that they were dating at the time, and then her sister. And I decided to stand on the hood of my Crown Victorian cop car, and the girl put it in reverse and she turned that way. And I remember I fell and I bit the curb. Like, I literally face first, and I knocked out. And I remember I was like in the back and I was like covered in blood because like there's like a, like my eyebrow opened up. And then I had to go to the hospital and I had to get stitches. And thank God it's like right under my eyebrow, which is dope. I took that car and I drove it 131 miles per hour. And I remember I hit this bump and I almost died. Like, it was scary. And then also I got it stuck in the middle of the desert. And I had to walk all the way home, which was like a 2-hour drive. And then my dad had to come and we had to pull it out. And, oh, at the same time, Sam's sister got a brand new Camaro. I remember one day we didn't max this thing out, but we went as fast as we possibly could down this road. And we hit, no cap, 161 miles per hour. And like we hit like a bump too. And like the back tires came off the ground. And it's just like, I mean, the sliver of chance that we didn't crash was crazy. And then also one time I remember she left to like Arizona or something, and I got to have the Camaro for 3 whole days to myself, which was awesome because the grandfather didn't have to do that, but he was super nice. Besides all of the screaming. Her crashing it, got the new one. Yeah, somebody hit her. It wasn't her fault. That was cool. So they crashed it, and then she got the new one. It was like an SS and then like an R, like I don't know. And then at one point, the grandfather, he was just going wild because he got like a settlement for like 150,000 or something. And at one point, like we had Sam's brand new truck, right? And then the grandfather, he also bought himself a truck. And then he was switching one of the trucks out, so we had 3 trucks. And I remember we were just mobbing down Main Street in 3 brand new trucks. Acting ridiculous. And I remember I did something like Sam's sister yelled like stop or something. And I just whoa, and I just and like I remember I laid down like a fat line. And she came like, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of the truck! And like I was so mad, I fucking got in my car and just fucking went home. And then the sister, I remember she brought me to Vegas once. It was me, her, and then a few other friends. We went down to Vegas, and that was the very first time I ever seen a Lamborghini. That was cool. And then I visited Sam in Arizona After that, I did college. I went to college for like a year, and I was taking 5 classes a week, and the lowest grade I got, I think, was like a C plus, which was pretty cool. Cop car. Yeah, my cop car exploded. So I was having problems with it. It was only going like 40 miles per hour, and I thought that I fixed it. So I decided to give it a test run, and I went down the freeway and I just maxed out like all the way, like literally just driving this car into the asphalt. And then like I turn around because I realized that I'm not going to be able to make it back home, and I don't have my cell phone with me. So it gets to the point where it just like it just stopped, and like a whole bunch of smoke started billowing out of it, and then all the antifreeze just started pouring out of it. And luckily enough, I saw my brother, the younger brother, just driving by coincidence, and he called the sister. The sister got the grandfather. They like the grandfather had this huge push bar on his truck, and like they pushed it up onto a trailer, then brought it back to my house, and then I had to sell it for $100. The reason why I had to sell it, because like I was kind of done with it, and I was planning to move to Arizona. I sold it for $100, and then I decided to jump ship. I decided to leave my parents, and it was really weird that I know some of my parents did this with, because my older brother left before me, and he moved to Las Vegas with his girlfriend. And they didn't come outside to send him off. And I remember I was like, wait, and then like I remember I gave him a hug, and then he left, and like till this day I haven't seen him. And my parents still don't have contact with him. So he left, and then I remember, I packed everything up into the back of Sam's truck. I had my weight bench and everything like that, everything that I had at the house. And I just fucking moved. I finally just moved out. I moved from California all the way to Arizona. And Sam picking me up and moving to Arizona. I said his name, so now I'm still gonna call him Sam though. I remember the very first night. It was so awkward that like I remember like I laid down and like just the loud creaking of the bed, and like you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet throughout that house. It was so awkward because like when I went to go visit him and go to the house, and that's when they decided you should like move in, like because I remember we had such a cool night. We were drinking, we were smoking, and the vibes were right then, but the vibes were just terrible as I moved in. Oh God, it was so awkward. And then how I've told the story, I'm not going to tell it again, but since I'm negative buoyant, Sam took me to go swimming across a huge lake, and I almost drowned, but I didn't. And then I got my very first job. My very first job was working with the CEO or the boss of his company, which was laying gas lines. So in the Arizona heat, I remember one day it got 115 degrees outside, and we're like digging trenches. So super hard labor. Like I remember that was like the best time of my life, literally. Like I'm not joking. Eventually I decided to follow in the footsteps of Sam, and I saved the money because I remember he was paying me, the boss, the CEO, he was paying me $100 a day, which he really didn't have to, but just in cash to really just kind of help me out. Like, I mean, that was crazy because I think the minimum wage in Arizona at the time was like $7 an hour. So then I decided to follow the steps of Sam, and I became a security guard. And I remember I was RoboCop, dude. I was just like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing to admit, but I was that guy because I was so young. I remember, like, you see those signs that says like 2-hour parking? I would sit there and just fucking and then we have these little citations or violations or that mean nothing whatsoever, and I would put them on the cars and everything like that. It was so bad. What else? Yeah, getting that job. A girl texted me over Facebook. She was from the United Kingdom. And then 60 days from when she was texting me, I was on a plane to go over to the United Kingdom. I went over to the United Kingdom. I saw Stonehenge. I saw Big Ben. I saw where the Queen lives. That was super amazing to have that, like, actual legitimate like relationship. After a while, what happened inside the house of like living is just like, I felt like I was picking up the slack for everybody, which is a very common story of like having like roommates and shit. But like, I would clean up after everybody, and then I just stopped cold turkey cleaning up after everybody. And then apparently I was leaving messes everywhere. And then the mom, she was in a different state. So I guess the girl that was living there with me and Sam and the uncle, I guess she was like calling or whatever, snitching on me. But I get a call and she tells me, either you clean up my effing backyard or get the F out of my house. I said 10-4, you know. So I packed up all my stuff into my, I forgot to say, I bought a 1996 Honda Civic for $600. They gave me the damn good price on that one because Sam knew them and they smoked weed too. So they're like, and they just bought a new car, so they just said, you basically can have it. The very first night, like, I am weathered now of like being homeless and like living in vehicles. But I think I was like, what, 20 at the time? And the very first night of like falling asleep in my Honda and like waking up to like a train horn and this tow truck parked in front of my car, it was like, it was so cold that it was like almost, it was like crushing my soul almost. But I was still dating that girl at the time, so she was really helping me through it and everything like that. And then, you know, thankfully I was still working a job. I was still working in security. So I saved up enough money to get my very first apartment in Arizona. And it was $545 a month. Free Wi-Fi, free water, which was crazy. And how did that work? Oh yeah, we got like a hotel. Before I got the apartment, we got a hotel, and then I brought my girlfriend with me to the apartment complex to look at the apartments, and then we went back to the hotel, and then she went back to the United Kingdom, And then like I finalized everything. I did all the paperwork, and then I got my apartment. And I forgot what happened with that security company, but it didn't work out. I started with a security company called Trident Security. I just oh yeah. When she came over, I remember I did like we had a mega vacation. We started out in my apartment, and then I brought her to the Grand Canyon, and from the Grand Canyon, we drove all the way to the Hollywood sign, and then we walked to the top of the Hollywood sign, and then I proposed to her. I was like, "Kid, will you marry me?" And she said yes. I remember the car troubles. There's no way. I'm kind of foreshadowing, but I was reading and I journaled it, so you guys are going to get to hear. There's no way. Like, I was so ignorant and so bulletproof at the time that, like, I should not have driven as far as I did with her in that car, but I did. And then from California, we went to Las Vegas. And obviously at the time we're thinking, oh, maybe we can get married down here, this and that. And then driving back to Arizona, she went back to the United Kingdom. I broke up with her. And then at that time, a lot of this is journals. At that time, I was really having some sort of like awakening within myself of realizing that I cannot get married right now. I still need to grow up. And I had this revelation of like I broke up with her. I moved out of my apartment. And I went, and I remember I did a few things before this, but I signed up with Postmates and I traveled to 48 states. And that's where I'm going to end this video, because that's everything. Oh, there were some other things. I'm sorry. There was one night that I cannot explain, but I remember one night I was looking up at the stars, and I've always been an insomniac. This was maybe at the age of like 8 or something. And I'm looking up at the stars, and the stars are moving. And then it's not like in like a line, but they're like moving around. And like I go and I'm like, Mom. I'm like, Mom, wake up. I'm like, I see aliens. I see aliens. And she was like, okay. And she came over and she looked up at them and she was like, they're moving. I'm like, yeah, they're moving. And like nothing came out of that. Oh man, my face is starting to tingle. Oh fuck. And then before that, the very first night when we all moved into the house, my mom said, I didn't hear this, but my mom said that she heard aliens or spirits or whatever say, those are the human boys. And then the most vivid was one night, it was me and my mom, and we were on the bed and we were watching TV, and we both at the same time dart and look over, and we see a face. We see a face, guys. We see a face inside the closet, and we look at each other and we say, did you see that? And we look back over and it was gone. I remember that, like, that happened. And I remember I spoke to my mom when we were older, and we said the same thing, but it just doesn't feel real. It just doesn't feel real. And then the last paranormal thing that happened that I remember with my personal eyes is that I was in the backyard and I think I was tending to my tomato plants. And in broad fucking daylight, I look up, and about 200 feet away, I look up in the sky and there is a big chrome floating craft right there, and literally I freak out and I start screaming, "Mom! Mom!" And I run upstairs, I go and I get onto the balcony, and it's fucking gone. It's just gone. And literally I was going on the internet the next day of typing in Marietta UFO, like, I was like, it was there. Also, when I was in Pennsylvania, I used to eat cat treats. It was very weird. Those are the human boys. Girl thought I was retarded. Oh, I remember in middle school I bought some firecrackers from this dude. Super sketchy guy. They were loud. And then also I remember I did buy this guy, Caleb. I bought this actual real like RC car that was super fast from him. He's a good man. So clearly there are like still memories that I can't remember right now, deep sound inside my brain. But man, this felt so good. So tomorrow's video is going to be, I'm going to be reading from my journal word for word, and then I'm going to read the journals, and then I can really like be at peace. Omelette du fromage.